Hello, and welcome to this session of WorkPlace U. The topic of this training is WIOA eligibility. During this session, you will review the background of the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, and also develop an understanding of the eligibility requirements for WIOA adult and dislocated worker programs. We'll start by defining WIOA. The Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, also known as WIOA, is a federal law designed to provide services to individuals so they can find employment in a high-skills, high-wage occupation. The goal of WIOA is to improve the quality of the workforce, reduce welfare dependency, increase economic self-sufficiency, meet skills requirements of employers, and enhance the productivity and competitiveness of the United States. In order for an individual to qualify for WIOA funding, the individual must meet all applicable general eligibility requirements and program-specific eligibility requirements for either adult or dislocated worker. Now let's review the eligibility requirements for the adult and dislocated worker programs. In order for an individual to receive adult or dislocated worker individualized career and training services, an individual must be a U.S. citizen or authorized to work in the U.S., and they must meet selective service registration requirements. This would be for males born after December 31st of 1959. Priority of service is given to WIOA adults who are recipients of public assistance, are low income, and are individuals who are basic skills deficient. The definition of a low-income individual would be any person who receives or is a member of a family who receives or in the past 6 months has received assistance through SNAP, TANF, SSI, state or local income-based public assistance. So in Connecticut, this would consist of general assistance, refugee cash assistance, and Husky Health. This individual could have also received an income or is a member of a family that received a total family income that did not exceed the poverty line or 70% of the lower living standard income level. This individual could also qualify as a homeless individual, or it could be an individual with a disability. Other adult program eligibility definitions would be an individual who receives or is a member of a family that receives food stamps or has received assistance in the past 6 months, or is a member of a family that has received assistance during the past 6 months. Next, it could be an individual who receives an income or is a member of a family that received a total income that does not exceed 100% of the lower living standard income level for the program year. Next, it could be an individual who is homeless or lacks a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. And finally, it could be an individual who has a disability or whose family income exceeds the income eligibility criteria for WIOA, but their individual income meets the low income criteria. The Dislocated Worker Program is designed to help workers get back to work as quickly as possible and overcome barriers to employment. These individuals may be considered dislocated due to job loss, mass layoff, global trade dynamics, or transitions in economic sectors. The first definition for dislocated worker eligibility would be an individual who has been terminated or laid off or has received a notice of termination or layoff from their employment and is eligible for, or they have exhausted their unemployment benefits and they are unlikely to return to the previous industry. The next definition could be an individual who has been terminated or laid off or has received a notice of termination or layoff from their employment and has been employed for sufficient duration, so this would be for 6 consecutive weeks as a minimum, to demonstrate workforce attachment, but they are not eligible for unemployment assistance due to insufficient earnings or their employer not being covered under state unemployment compensation law, and they are unlikely to return to the previous industry or occupation. Next, it could also be an individual who has been terminated or laid off or has received notice of termination or layoff from employment as a result of a permanent closure or substantial layoff at a plant, facility, or enterprise. Could also be an individual who has been given a general announcement from their employer that the facility will close within 180 days, or an individual who was previously self employed. This would include farmers, ranchers, and fishermen, but they are currently unemployed due to general economic conditions in the community of residence or because of natural disaster. Next, a displaced homemaker would qualify as a dislocated worker, and this is an individual who is providing unpaid services to family members in the home and has been dependent on the income of another family member, but they are no longer supported by that income, and they are unemployed or underemployed, and they may be experiencing difficulty in obtaining or upgrading employment, and this includes dependent spouses of the armed forces on active duty whose family income is significantly reduced because of a deployment, a call or order to active duty, a permanent change in station, or the service-connected death or disability of a service member. Finally, military assignment. This would be an individual who is a spouse of a current member of the military who is forced to leave their employment to follow their spouse due to change in military assignment. And finally, an individual who is a previous member of the military who is discharged from the armed forces under honorable conditions and did not retire from the military. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. If you have any questions on the topic discussed, please follow up with your supervisor for additional guidance.